wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Fouad Kassab.
Welcome to A Quirky Journey. This is your host Fouad Kassab, and with me from a very noisy office is Jo Whitten. Hello, Jojo.
Hello. Maybe I should go podcast in my car again.
That was the best thing, like if you can go to the car.
It's like a sound bubble.
Quiet. Yes. And you get to drive and podcast at the same time.
No, I don't. I sit in the parking lot.
No, I'm just joking.
Overlooking a lookout or something.
Yeah.
Quite nice, actually.
How's your week going? Doing all right?
Good, yeah.
The other day, when we mentioned this in the talk with Elise, we had a podcast with Elise, and I got this message on the Quirky Cooking Gut Health Program Facebook group. And this person was asking for a friend of hers who is a single mom of 2 kids, and she works, and she has this eczema that sometimes makes it necessary for her to go to hospital. It's like it gets that bad, which is, I know how bad that is. Like for me, I've needed to be hospitalized before, luckily avoided it. I'm not saying that if you need to be hospitalized, you shouldn't do it. You should go to the hospital if it goes severe. I didn't know that I was that bad myself because I had eczema and acne all my life, and I was used to it. But I know how bad it can be. And the question was, what can she do to start, maybe doing gaps or something like that. And I just panicked at the idea of a single mom of 2 who works, and she's got such severe eczema. Probably doesn't have a huge amount of support, around her when she to be able to do this, to start going full on with gaps, because it is a demanding diet. It's not easy. It's not easy to go on gaps when your situation doesn't really permit it. So then I started thinking with Jo about what can people do? Like, what should people do before they move on to the harder gradient of looking at their diet? And with us doing the intro stuff. So we have this document called our top tips for good gut health, which we are putting as a download in our online gut health program. You can get it.
Free download.
When you just go to gaps.quirkycooking.com. It's still not ready yet. Give it a week. But this document is the basis of what we are sharing today. So we're going to be talking about some of the points that we put in that document. The document is split in half. Half of it is lifestyle stuff, and the other half is food-related things. So we want to talk about the lifestyle, the things that you can get in order so that you actually have a bit more space and energy in your life to be able to go on the more demanding aspects of healing.
Changing the diet. Yeah, sure. Okay, so the first thing that you need to work on, we believe, is simplifying your life. And I think, as we all know, life can get far too busy with all the things that we pile into it. And it's hard to say no. You want to hang out with your friends and family. You want to go to all the things and the events that are on, and your kids have sports and dancing and concerts and whatever. And there's school and there's work. And it becomes this, sometimes it feels like you are in a cyclone. It's so crazy. And if any of you have ever made that decision to pull back and to start taking things out of your calendar and to start saying no to things that are not absolutely necessary, you will know how freeing that is. And especially when you're really exhausted and you're struggling with your health, you've got to pare down your calendar and pare down all those extra activities, because they're just putting so much stress and pressure on you. And it may be good things. It may be things that, like music lessons, and it may be hanging out with friends that, it's all good things, but it can just be too many things. And do you want to say something?
No.
Go ahead. Okay. And I just have found in my own life, sometimes you have to go into survival mode, I call it, and just pull right back and for a while kind of hibernate. and just let the stress levels calm down for a while and don't overcommit. And especially when you're working on healing, it's a really important thing to do, is to just hibernate a bit and explain to your friends and family, you know, what you're doing, and that it's temporary. It's not that you don't want to ever see them again and you don't want to ever do anything again. It's just that you need some time out.
Yeah, and Joe mentioned that, you know, it could all be good stuff, but here I'll give you a scenario that is quite common, and
okay,
see if you relate it to your life or not. You have a busy life. You and your partner both work, or you have a busy home life. You got kids, go to school, a lot of things that they do outside of that. You wake up in the morning, you need your coffee. You push your adrenal glands because of the coffee so that you can get through the day. You have a couple, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but it's more than your body can naturally give in terms of its energy. You are being pulled in all areas. The house needs to look a certain way, or you need to be able to afford certain things. You want to maintain a certain look. You want to be able to maintain relationships in a way that you've always been able to do that before you've had this busy life. You have some financial goals that require you to stretch yourself to several investment properties, or one, or maybe even struggling to make ends meet with the rent. And you've got all these things coming in, and they're piling up, and you're going through your eating as well as you can. Sometimes you skip a meal when you shouldn't be doing it. Sometimes you eat too much sugar when you shouldn't be doing it. Sometimes you reach for some junk food or some easy meal from a cafe where they're using ingredients that don't really do well with you. All these things are piling up in your life, and then you crack. And if then you say, I'm going to go on GAPS and fix this, you haven't addressed the root cause of the problem that got you. It wasn't the food that got you here. It was the way that you were living. And you have to be able to look at your life and get rid of the unnecessary things. There are areas of stress that are unnecessary. You have to be able to identify them, which means you're going to need to take some time out of your life to be able to look at it without the momentum of the chaos that you're living in.
Yeah.
And that perspective will allow you to identify these areas where you can say, you know what, I don't need to do this. Maybe while I'm recovering, I don't need to make X amount of money. I can make enough money just to survive for the next 6 months, and then maybe cut down on my work from being 5 days a week to being 3 days a week or 2 days a week, and use the other time to do something else. And then start getting your life in order so that this momentum that got your body in such a stressed state, which then puts you in a disease state because of the chronic stress, this is the way forward for you. It's not about going GAPS or, you know, having more probiotic food or anything like that, because you're still under immense stress. And if you don't get rid of that stress and simplify your life, you probably won't get better. So have a redefinition of the goals that you want for the next 6 months or a year or whatever it is, and get out of the momentum that you built in your life and you've been running on without examining for a period of time. If you can re-examine your life, this is the way to do it. This is why I do things like vision quests, or I go to nature quite often, Joe. It's because I need to step out of my own momentum in order to look at the areas that are bringing me stress in my life. And I tell you, I don't have a stressful life. I really don't. But my body, because of the years of stress that I have had, is really fragile now compared to how resilient it used to be. So I need to be in a constant look. I need to be constantly looking at these things in my life, and just making sure I go back to a more peaceful way of living.
I find with having kids that have health struggles, like working through things pretty constantly with kids, that is an underlying, it may not feel like, oh no, I'm so stressed out, but there's that low-grade stress that is kind of constant when you have to be on top of diet and you have to be on top of all the things with the kids' health, or even just keeping up with kids that need a lot of help with school or things like that. It's kind of a low-grade stress that's always there, and that can really suck your energy and cause you you know, to start to get unwell. And I have found that in my life, I need to really cut down on the extra stuff so that I have the energy for my family and for myself. So that's one of the things that I've found. And even for those of you who, like Fouad was saying, you have these expectations, like especially when you're young and single or you don't have any kids yet, you have a certain level of life, but you have to pull things back sometimes when you have kids and things get a bit crazy, and you have to, like you said, Fouad, reset your expectations of what you want in life and simplify those expectations. I think it's really important not to be on social media following people who are pushing a way of living that is way beyond what you can manage and just causes you stress to look at it because you want that, but you can't have it, or you feel like I've got to constantly strive to be just like them. Don't follow those kind of people. They're not helping you. I had to unfollow some people like that, and it's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that you start getting these expectations for yourself that are unrealistic.
Yeah.
So
if you're feeling triggered by someone that you follow on social media, you know, you can simply unfollow it. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It's just that stress in your life. You don't need to go, well, I shouldn't feel triggered by this or that. Don't make a big deal out of it, but just take it out of your life.
And it's also seasons of life, and I think we have to remember that you go, like, for instance, that season of life where your kids are really little, you can't have very much extra in your life. And you can't have big expectations of what you're going to do in a day, and you're going to decorate your house, and you're going to do all these arts and crafts, and you're going to paint, and you're going to do music, and it just doesn't work.
No.
I think I spent 10 years without doing any artwork, and it just about killed me because I love art. But it was just, my time was all sucked up by children. And I don't say that that's a good thing. I probably should have worked out a way to have my creative outlet more, although cooking became my creative outlet, I suppose. And that's where Quirky Cooking started.
Struggled as well.
I was really struggling with my health back then so badly. So I just had to really learn to pull back. And I think, you become more peaceful when you do what, like Fouad says, going out into nature and spending time alone and having those
times. Not into nature thing too much. So let's not talk much about that one.
I won't.
But you know what, Jo? Like it's not realistic as well. Like this kind of mom or dad that can do everything, that is just maybe people who are, you know, of amazing health, and they've got support, and they've got all this stuff that they can do. For most of us, the great majority of us, it's not achievable. No. These are not goals that we can set ourselves. We can't be a successful parent and successful at work and be able to be an after-school parent that does this or that and looks after all the creative outlets of the kids. It's not a natural way for us to be anyway. No, like kids usually used to educate themselves artistically.
That's right.
It wasn't something that the parents needed to be involved in.
And they'd run around and play, you know, after school with their friends and make their own cricket games or soccer games or whatever. And it wasn't really parents having to run them to everything constantly.
Yeah, and, you know, playing like competitive sports becomes such a thing that the parents need to dedicate their time to.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
And this has actually replaced normal, like, backyard playtime. So it's just important to find that time for that free play again, because free play is actually very, very powerful for child development. It's really powerful. It's not something to go, we have regimented play or like ballet or all that kind of stuff. You know? And the bigger the family, the more difficult this burden becomes as well. So you can't put those expectations on yourself, and at least, you know, try to minimize to the point where it's
doable without
you can do it without pushing yourself. Completely. All right. Well, what's next, Jo? What's the next point?
Detoxing the home. Do you want to start that one?
Yeah, sure. Like, so one of the things that I think about at home is if you want to change the way that you eat, there's a big learning curve. A lot of people need to maybe learn how to cook for the first time, or they need to go, is this ingredient good for me? Can I eat that? Can I not eat that? What do I do with this? What do I do with that? And this kind of learning curve may be too steep initially for you to start seeing the big results. I mean, of course, it's always pays to move to whole food. It always pays to start including nourishing, nutritionally dense ingredients in your cooking, or at least cooking if you're not doing that. But what I find is we are in a home that is constantly bombarding us with chemicals, from the rugs that we buy that are made of chemicals that are emitting terrible stuff into
and the couches
and the shampoo that we're using. If you bought your shampoo, your conditioner, your hand wash, if you bought all these from the supermarket, there's a 95% chance that you brought something toxic into your house, because of all the products that they have in the supermarket, maybe one range, if it's there, is actually good for you and doesn't contain any nasty stuff that's causing you like hormonal disruption or being sucked into your bloodstream and causing you some issues there. We're not really meant to be putting man-made chemicals on our body. We're not meant to be using these things around the house. We're not meant to be sterilizing everything. We're not meant to be, washing everything with antibacterial soap or sprays. And all these things are causing a lot of health issues in the home. But if you move away from all these things that you're buying that are causing you problems, and you start knowing what products to replace them with, then it's done. You've done it. You've got the dishwashing liquid sorted out. You've got the body lotion sorted out. You've got your conditioners, your deodorants. You know what you're getting.
And you know what to buy each time, because you become used to the new brands.
Yeah, and it like you haven't made a change of habit. You haven't had to learn something new. There are great resources out there about where to buy these things or what kind of brands to buy. So all you're doing is replacing one for one. So instead of using this shampoo, you use that shampoo. Instead of using this body wash, you use that one. So, for me, like I only use Weleda, which is an incredible brand for body lotions, shampoos. Not that I use shampoo, but for my kids, and even toothpaste and deodorants and all that kind of stuff. You can just find one brand that you trust that does all of that. And
makes it so simple.
It does, yeah. And, you might go, well, this is more expensive, but yes, but it's not killing you, and it's not placing a burden on your ability to handle stress. It's not causing you mental fog. It's not causing you hormonal disruption. So you weigh it out and see if the cost of chronic illness in the long term is worth it, or it's better to buy higher quality products that you'll be able to function with in the home.
I found the Weleda products are pretty, they're not a terribly high price ticket anyway. Like sometimes you'll get these really niche brands that are very high, even ones that aren't non-toxic. They're just like hairdresser brands or whatever.
Yes.
They're so expensive, but you can get really good ones that are not too expensive. So just look around. Our recommendation is to, go and have a look at Alex Stewart's website, Low Tox Life. She's going to be on the podcast next week, and so you'll hear lots about how to do this. So we won't go into heaps of detail here, but she's got a new book out called Low Tox Life that it's just so simple. It's a beautiful book. Have you seen it yet, Fouad?
I've seen, she showed it to me when we were at the
that's right. Yeah, it's a really good book. And I think it's really helpful for people just beginning when they just go, I don't know where to start. But there's so many simple swaps that you can make. So don't let it become an overwhelming stress in your life. Just start working on doing the swaps.
Absolutely. Do you have anything else to add in that area, Jojo?
Makeup. I think for women who wear makeup, it is important to know about what's in your makeup. Things like eyeliner and mascara can have heavy metals in them. You may have seen on the news recently there was the 3 young girls that got very, very sick in a family, and it was because of the eyeliner they were using had 84% lead. So, be really careful with it's terrible. You be really careful with what you let your young girls use. They want to be like their friends and use all this stuff. So just keep an eye on the products. And I just went out when my daughter turned 13 and wanted to start using bits and pieces of, not much, but lip gloss and different things, I started, I actually tried a few different brands, and I asked them, I want stuff for young girls, and I figured out which ones to use. And she's doing really well with those. And it's just something that you need to start them off right in the beginning with, not the cheap and nasty supermarket stuff.
Well, the thing about, poor makeup is that the more you use it, the more of it you need as well.
That's it creates problems.
Yeah, it's damaging your skin. So then you need more to hide it.
Clog up the pores and create pimples and things. Yeah,
absolutely. So you want to avoid all that. The younger person is, the better.
If you need help figuring out what brands for makeup as well, Nourished Life is a great website. She researches all the makeups and the things that she sells on her site, and so you can check on there for the different brands. And I have some suggestions as well, which I'm happy to send if anyone wants to email me, things that I use and love.
Beautiful. Maybe we'll put a document up somewhere where people can.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That'd be great. All right. My next area is decluttering the house. This is something I'm learning.
This is your favorite area.
Yeah. Well,
not really.
I've come from a tidy home, but I was never taught or was never instilled in me to be tidy myself, because my mom did all the tidy up, it was just crazy. And she definitely was kind of obsessive about it. So I just felt even if I did it, it wouldn't be right in her eyes. So I just left it to her almost. But I never really learned the habit, and that was quite detrimental for me. So I hoarded stuff, not like not a television hoarder. No,
those are pretty scary.
Nothing. I've actually been into a hoarder's house. I think, oh God, that's crazy.
I'd be claustrophobic.
Yeah, and they don't actually realize.
No.
Crazy thing. So maybe we're all hoarders when we don't know about it. But
to some certain degree.
Yeah. So here's what I do these days: is first of all, my wife, Lainey, she, before we moved to this house here, she's like, I'm going to get rid of a lot of stuff in the house. She was completely thinking about the move to the Blue Mountains. She didn't want to bring a lot of unnecessary things. So there's this method called the KonMari method.
KonMari?
Yeah, KonMari. Yeah, and her name is Mary Kondo. Is the woman who does it, and she's a Japanese woman who has this really incredible method of decluttering. And she doesn't declutter like by room; she declutters by category. She's like, all right, let's get all the books, and then she gets all the books, puts them in one place, and gets rid of the ones that you don't need. And the question we ask is like, is it useful, or does it bring joy? Like, do I need it, and does it bring joy? I think these are the questions that you ask. And if you need it, then you keep it. If you don't need it, does it bring joy? And if it does bring joy, you keep it. And if it doesn't bring joy, you get rid of it. And then she's got like a specific method. Yeah. And she's got like, start with this part and move to that part of the house, and like that part of that category, and then that category and that category, because she has got it down pat to a method. And you can see videos of the method on YouTube. She talks about it a lot.
They like speed it up, fast motion, so you can see
I don't know.
Someone decluttering their house. That'd be cool.
Lainey got her book, which we had to then
I've got it on
away. I'm just joking.
You didn't love it?
No, well, it wasn't useful. We already did it.
Okay.
But no.
See, if you get it on Kindle, then it doesn't clutter.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a good idea. But then I've got 6 Kindles. No, 0 Kindles.
I use my phone.
Yeah, my computer for my Kindle.
Yeah.
But man, it's really like, it's such a big thing. I'll tell you, like a cluttered house, I've realized that it is the representation of the inner mind. And like if I'm sort of always sort of busy in my head, overthinking stuff and whatever, it's quite often that my house is messy. So if I tidy up the house, my mind becomes clear. And if I tidy up my mind, I tidy up the house more. And I found a really cool thing to do is to purposely put things in place, because quite often I'll just take something and put it somewhere. Don't not even think about what I've done. But like if you grab, sounds woo-woo, but if you grab a cup and you put it down without thinking, or you put it in the same place and going, I'm actually going to put it here. This cup or the glass that you put down behaves differently in the room internally for you, because you don't feel that thing is out of place. You feel that you've actually put it in place. And when something is put in place and everything around is put in place around you, you feel that things are organized and that you're on top of your life somehow. So having this conscious awareness of where you're placing your things makes a big, big difference. So this is the extreme that I went to the other day. Like I came back, I went bush, and I came back, and I noticed my family was out the day after, and I noticed that the house was like I had put stuff on every surface. There was just something on every surface, and I just couldn't believe how messy I was. So I went and I tidied every aspect of this house and put everything in its place. Everything was sort of square. There was nothing sort of out of alignment. A bit OCD-ish, the behavior, but it was like everything just went in place. And then Lainey comes and opens the door, and I kid you not, she opened the door. There's nothing in the hallway to see that the house has been tidy. And she goes, whoa, like that. She was just, she couldn't believe it. She
could feel the tidiness from the front door.
It was crazy. I don't know what that is, man. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just sharing my experience of what took place. And, she felt the house was lighter. Yeah. Because you know what, like, just like human beings, a house could be constipated. And if you don't, get rid of the rubbish and tidy things up, then it's just not going to feel like a nice place to live here.
I think one of the things that my mum taught me was before you go to bed at night, always tidy up the kitchen counters and around the sink so that that's not full of dishes, and always tidy the lounge room. So when you get up in the morning and you walk into your living area, it feels like welcoming. It doesn't feel like, oh, I've got so much to do before I can even start my day.
Yeah.
And I know that makes a big difference for me. If I tidy up at night, in the morning I feel much more energized.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find is if I have to do a talk or a seminar, I've got to write, I'm trying to write a blog post, I'm trying to write an article. Every time I try to sit down, if my room and my desk area or the kitchen area or wherever I'm working, if it's a mess, I cannot concentrate until I've cleaned that up. And sometimes when my kids were little, it would take me till 10 o'clock to clean up, and then I could write. And it would drive me crazy, but I just couldn't do it until I'd got everything tidy, and then my brain started to work. So it really helps you. I find it helps my creativity. If things around me are in order and tidy, I don't have to think about them. Maybe that's what you were saying with the cup. It's like once you know that it's in the right place, you don't have to think about it anymore. It's out of your mind, so it's decluttered your mind.
Yeah. That's probably what it is, I also think, like, just at an even deeper level, like this just, there's something about a human being that is in an environment that is just the way it's supposed to be, rather than when it's not, because we like putting things in order. Mm-hmm. We don't, like we said, things aren't organized, and we sense that there's something wrong with something that's disorganized. It causes us issues, like, because if it didn't, we wouldn't think about it. Everything would be cluttered. So it's just important to organize things, and if you haven't done it for a while, get onto it. Get onto it and see the difference. It's just could be a lifelong habit that you can easily break. And then if you want to make changes with your food, and you've gotten rid of 40% of the unnecessary things that are around in the house, which are just like you're living in a place that's like falling down on you, and you get rid of all that stuff, you have more mental space for cooking.
Actually, I have to mention this. When we started GAPS, you know how when you first start GAPS Intro, your food is simplified so much.
Yes.
I used to do the bulk orders, well, I still do through co-ops, but not as much as I used to. But I used to order every sort of grain that you could imagine, all the different nuts, the coconut, the different, there was the different sweeteners. I had so much stuff in my kitchen and in my freezer and in my fridge and in my pantry and stored in containers in my laundry cupboards. I'm not joking. I looked like a doomsday prepper. There was stuff everywhere. But then when I started GAPS, I started getting rid of all that. Mostly I gave it to my mum. She uses up all my things that I'm like, Mum, I don't think I'll use this. Yeah, that's fine, I'll use it. She's not a hoarder. She just has a lot of people to cook for. So
it's a bit of a... No, your mum actually is not a hoarder.
It's very simple, her kitchen, but I don't know where all the food goes. I guess into all the visitors. But I just cleaned it all out, and I ended up with one big drawer in the kitchen and one small cupboard as my pantry. That was it. After all those years of cupboards in the laundry and everywhere. And when I'd open my freezer, all that was in there was meat, fish, broth, and maybe some frozen meals, and sometimes some frozen veggies and berries, and maybe some desiccated coconut or nuts, and that was it. And so I just did such a big clean out in my kitchen as well, and that was so freeing. I was like, yes, I can open my pantry and see that I've just got, very basic ingredients.
Yeah, spices tend to be an area of hoarding as well.
Okay, yes, I need to work on that still.
Yeah, whole spice drawer.
Yeah, I do have a large spice drawer, but I do need to declutter that.
Yeah.
Next on the list. But even our cookbook, I think reflects this, because my first cookbook there was a lot of ingredients in that cookbook, and our cookbook that we did, because my cooking has simplified so much, we used much simpler ingredients in the second cookbook.
Definitely. Ingredients that aren't expensive, they don't...
difficult to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So declutter your kitchen while you're at it.
Here's one, the family thing. I'm going to read this because it just makes me laugh, the way that we wrote it in the document. Can I read?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Quite often we find the most pushback for change comes from the people closest to us, our family. It's easy to understand. Human beings are creatures of comfort and habit. Take away their pasta and you may very well see their ugly side. Tantrums, incessant crying, alienation, grumpiness, and sour behavior are all common. And that's just usually the partner. But seriously now, we're not saying that this issue is going to be completely solved by talking to your family about why you're making changes. At least, however, you could have a better outcome and far less resistance when your family knows the importance of these changes and that you are doing it for everyone's benefit. Perhaps watch a relevant documentary such as The Magic Pill on Netflix, or other good docos like that sugar film.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Jo?
I love it. It's so true. I remember very well starting GAPS, and there was door slamming and crying. That actually was the kids. And that was because of the no bread thing. Yeah. So they were not happy about no bread, but they got over it. They got over it, and they thanked me later.
Well, you got some good bread for them later. You managed
that's right.
to come up with a GAPS bread recipe, and that worked well.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I think it's very important I found it was a really good thing to go through the reasons why you're doing what you're doing with your kids, if they're old enough to understand, obviously. Mine were teenagers, so it was much simpler to explain and to actually get them to read things, listen to podcasts with me or watch documentaries with me, especially Isaac, because it was mainly for him. And he got right into it and studied it up for himself, and that really helped. And also just for the rest of the family, if they're sort of just along for the ride, but some of them aren't that unwell and they feel like they don't need it so much, at least explain it as a way to support their brother, sister, mother, father, whoever it is that's really needing the help.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I explained to my other kids, this is so important for your support. We can't do this like half the family eating one way and half the family eating up the other way, because it jeopardizes, what you're doing. My husband did have, I've told this before, he did have his own little cupboard of things that he sometimes put in there that was only daddy's, like bread, which was gluten-free bread, or muesli bars or things like that. Yeah. And the kids knew not to eat it because that was dad's. Yeah. So you may have to work around it a little bit, but just helping them to understand why makes such a big difference.
And one thing around this area of like education that you were talking about, because I haven't had to really deal with.
No, yours are little.
Yeah, mine with it's quite young, so that's all they know, unfortunately. Yesterday I said, I mentioned something like schnitzel, and Sarah's like, "What's a schnitzel?" And I'm like, "Oh, poor Aussie kid, like if she doesn't know what a schnitzel is, it's gonna be made fun of at school later." It's like an Aussie staple. But the funny thing is, education does play a big part. Like for us, I tell a different version, like not more expanded version of the story. But we got this book that we sell in the store called Happy Happy Poo, which the kids. It's a kids book, and it talks to them about probiotics and healthy eating. It's a funny kind of book. It personifies all these good guys and bad guys and stuff. And I won't spoil the story. You get to hear it in the seminar because it's quite funny. But when we started reading the book for the kids, they started wanting to eat fermented foods more, and they were more willing to taste it and try different things because they had the good guys in them, and that just made it easier for us because the family was informed around the health benefits of eating these things. So there's a lot of stuff that you can use to support yourself. Definitely.
Can we just mention in here how to talk to your friends about it? Because there was a question in the Quirky Gaps group today, I noticed, from a lady saying that is the thing that scares her the most about changing her diet and working on health, is being different from all her friends, not being able to eat with everyone else at social gatherings, feeling like the odd one out. So, while you're talking to your family about it, I really feel like you do need to help your friends understand why you're doing what you're doing as well. And if they're true friends and they really love you, they will understand that this is something that you're doing to get well and that they need to support you in it, even if they don't need to do it or want to do it themselves. And, of course, you need to be careful not to hassle them about how they eat or anything. But I found with our kids, once they explained to their friends why they were doing it, their friends became really supportive, and their cousins. And I've had my older cousins, the kids' older cousins, actually keep an eye on them when they're out and say, "Hey, don't you eat that? That's not gluten-free," and stuff like that. So it's been really good to see once their friends and our friends and family understand that they're much more supportive.
Yeah, and also with sort of feeling like the odd one out in the friend group. Let's say you go to a restaurant and it becomes a bit of an issue trying to determine what kind of food there is that you can do well with. It's a good idea to have a look at the menu beforehand, make your decision, maybe call the restaurant and say, "Look, I'm coming with my friends, and I've got these dietary issues. Can you make something up ahead for me?" And quite often a restaurant will be happy to do that. They wouldn't mind at all. So then it takes away that kind of social awkwardness of having to order something different, or thinking, "Oh, there's no food that I can eat here," and feeling like you're left out when everyone is having a great meal.
Yeah, that's a really good bit of advice.
Yeah.
I also did, with the kids, I also always made sure I made something special that they could have when we went to someone's house or to a party or a social gathering, but enough for them to share with their friends. So some lovely cupcakes or the type, the pizzas and things that they could have that I made homemade, but enough for them to share. And then their friends were like, "Oh, these are really nice." And they feel like, "Oh, good, I'm eating with my friends." And you can also do that with your friends.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Love it. And, okay, maybe we'll have time for one more point, Jo. What do you reckon?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you choose one.
Well, do you want to do the outdoors one?
No, I speak a lot about
Leave that.
Yeah.
Okay. Leave that one for later. Well, let's go on to choose your people carefully, because that carries on from what we're saying. I think number 7.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one.
Okay, so talking about friends, sometimes you will find that you'll start to gravitate towards a new friend group if things change a lot. Or you may just start to find some other friends that are more like-minded to add to your friend group. So like Fouad's written down here in our document, if you want to walk fast, walk alone, but if you want to walk far, walk together. And it's so true that when you have a really good support network, it really helps to move you forward on your journey. And I think with healing, and when you've got a special diet or you just need to work on eating healthier, there's an incredible power in having that positive peer pressure, if that's the right way to say it, to have that support and community around you that are all going, yes, you're doing a great thing.
Well, but it also keeps you accountable. So yeah, I guess that is a form of peer pressure, that
a positive
form.
Yeah.
Also, people who understand the difficulty of staying on track, because
and cheer you on.
If you fail, they don't blame you for it. They just say, okay, get back on, do it. You can do it. Get back on it. But this is definitely a big part. And if you can't find these people face to face, an online community does a really good job. I think that's the big reason why Quirky Cooking is such a thriving community, because people could be anywhere in the world and they find that there's a lot of like-minded people who are talking about things that are relevant to them, that they can have exchange of ideas, they can learn from each other, they support each other. It's a big deal. It really is.
It really is.
And even between Jo and me, this is having someone like Jo in my life just makes it easier for me to when I'm struggling and go, hey, what about this? And Jo, for instance, would recommend an article, or she would recommend a podcast for me to listen to, or something like that, which then leads me in the right direction. Something maybe I wouldn't have come across myself, but she has. So it broadens the available knowledge base as well, and makes you able to learn more quickly that way.
And just having someone who will come alongside and say, hey, I know you're having a bad day, or I know that you feel like you've gone backwards or you've messed up, whatever, but hey, I'm here for you, and it's going to get better, and keep going. And that's so important.
Yeah.
I think also we mentioned the Quirky Cooking community. So we have the Quirky Cooking chat group, and we also have a Quirky Gaps group and a gut health program support group. And in all those groups, I've found it's a really lovely community spirit. And it's, some groups on Facebook and online forums can get quite nasty. Yeah. And we really guard against that in our group, and we're careful how we speak to people in the group, and we've really encouraged kindness and looking out for each other. And it's just been beautiful to see it grow, and to see, like the other day, someone messaged and said, hey, I have a form of cancer. I need help with my food. Is there anyone that could make me some stocks and some foods for healing? And there's been people who volunteered in that area and are taking her food. And this is for free. This is not for money, and it's just so beautiful to see that kind of support. And you may not know anyone in your area that could do that for you. So get in these groups and connect with people, and it's so important.
Absolutely. And also there's the flip side of people as well. There's the positive, helpful, reinforcing side, but then there's also the people who are negative on your life. People who are close to you and lifelong friends or things like that. And you may, without knowing it, be addicted to their drama, and have a really, really close look on who it is that you are giving your energy to.
Yeah.
If you need healing, then your energy is not an infinite resource. It's quite finite, and it should be directed to the things that are vital to your life. So that means you can't go around giving your energy to people who just are like vampires, just suck you dry. And it's really, really important to identify these people. And like the patterns are, I guess, someone who's demanding or complains a lot, or whose life never is good. Like whatever they can be going on in their life, they're looking at the bad side of it, or they're critical, self-critical, or critical to you or to others. They could be dramatic. People that you can see are not accepting responsibility in their lives. So have a look and see which people fall in these categories. And I'm not saying that you should stop talking to them, but find a new way of engaging with them that just doesn't feed the drama that is caused by encountering them. And that means that you can sympathize instead of empathize. So sympathy is when you can just say, oh, this sounds bad, but you're not trying to solve the problem. You're not trying to feel how they feel. Because if they're feeling sad, you might want to feel sad just so that you resonate with them emotionally. That's not necessary. You don't need to feel sad so that you can help someone. You can still feel very positive. You can still feel very strong. And it's not the kind of strength that, will demand something from you. If it's demanding something from you, if you need to pull yourself up to be strong in order to give a good example, that's sucking your energy. So you need to be able to be in your own equilibrium when you deal with people like that, and not to have to give them more of the energy that you just really desperately need for yourself.
Yeah. And this is especially true when, like Fouad said, when you're healing and you're in that survival mode. You have to be so careful that you're not getting sucked dry by everyone around you. And sometimes you've got less of a, what's the word? You just can't handle as much of that. So you need to be really careful.
Yeah. It's great. Well, cool. Jojo, maybe we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, we hope that that's been helpful. We've got lots more points to go through. Maybe we can do some more another podcast.
We'll put up the document. I'm going to put this document up. So look out for the document info in the show notes of this episode. I'll make sure that it's up in time for Friday. And
that'll be good.
Yeah. And then if you've got any questions or anything that you want us to elaborate on, just send us an email at help@quirkycooking.com.au. Also, don't forget, come to my dinner on the 6th of September. Come see us in Hobart, in Burnie, in Launceston, or in Melbourne. The dates will be up on the podcast as well, so you can come check us out and say hello.
Come hang out.
Hang out with us and just eat some good food and learn something new in the seminars as well.
Come and spend some time with some supportive, like-minded people. Make some new friends.
Yes, grow your community.
Actually, the dinners are a great way to make new friends that are like-minded, because you sit at the table and chat over good food.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a sharing feast, so you'll be sitting with other people on the table, and I hope you come and enjoy.
Well, thank you, Fouad, for being my support network.
That's all right, Jo. I'm not your entire support network.
No, but you get your poor thing. You have to put up with a lot of it.
That's all right. It's my pleasure, Jo. Pleasure to help you be able to reach that many people. So
thank you. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Chat to you later.
Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.